Okay, so we'll start now. This is the AIX User Meeting, number 3, September. And thank you for joining us. It's recorded and it's on the web page in the support.nmon.com, and people can watch it there. As I was saying a little bit earlier, we've had 500 people watch the video of it, the recording, and usually a couple of tens of people actually attending the session live. So just a little reminder of some of the things that happened last time. We looked at those new scale-out model G machines. And some new videos came out. And what's this down here? nmon monitoring for multiple oracles. Yes, I had a customer asking me about that. He actually runs 4 different Oracle instances on the same machine. That's sort of a little bit old school. We tend to split out different virtual machines for different copies of AIX these days. Then we have a strength document that we've remade. It's been going for something like 15 years now, the history of all machines, of AIX, which machines it supports, and when features arrive. Quite interesting sometimes when you're looking at a piece of technology like perhaps AIX memory expansion. You think, how old is that? Is that 5 years old, 10 years old? And you can look it up in the strength document. So here's the big one for today. nmon, of course, was developed on AIX for me, running benchmarks in the Montpellier Benchmark Center. We started off in the UK. When the machines got too big and expensive, it was all consolidated down to one place in Montpellier in the south of France. Lovely place to work, nice and warm if you're from the north of Europe. And particularly nice in May. If you can think of an excuse to go in there in May, the weather is just perfect. But we've had 1 million downloads now of nmon and my newer tool, njmon, as a follow-on session later today on those sorts of topics. They're all intermixed. If I started it again, maybe I'd have called it ntools or something, Nigel's Tools. For the Linux side of things, that was made open source in 2009. Now we have njmon for AIX and Linux, and a couple of new things happening there. Of course, nmon for AIX became part of AIX in 2008. So this 1 million doesn't include AIX since then, because it's not downloaded. It comes with AIX. It's a default install. It's always there. And in fact, nmon, but as a default install, has actually started. It starts every day, and it keeps a week's worth of data in your etc/perf, if I can remember right. So you could look back in the past week and see if the performance has changed. That has actually helped us quite a lot in some critical situations, where the first thing that the AIX support guys tell you is, well, what did you change recently? And what was the performance like last week? Well, if you haven't got nmon running, well, it is there. Under the covers, we can go and get the file and actually find out if anything particular has changed. It's a good avenue for finding out what's wrong with it now. Anyway, this happened on Saturday. Big cheering in the nmon house in here. I had some very sad looks from my wife, thinking, "Oh dear, I married him. What a shame." Right, next up, I realised that a lot of people are doing live partition mobility these days. It's almost a given that you should be doing this. It's quite rare that we find the customers not doing this because of the enormous impact it has on your running of your computer. And it does assume you have 2 machines, of course, that you're not a tiny outfit for power computers, and we can jump a live LPAR or virtual machine from one machine to the other. Particularly useful if you need to shut down a machine, perhaps to do a firmware upgrade, something like that. So on a quieter time of the week or the month, you can put all the workload onto one machine and power down the other machine to do whatever work you want. Or, for example, adding more memory to the machine. That's something that does happen, and that requires an outage of your server. And there's 2 checklists that you can go and look at. As far as I can work out, one's a subset of the other one, but this is actually held there with the red books. I think it's an output of one of the red books. Loads of things for you to go and check and see. Make sure that when you need logical live partition migration that is actually going to be there and working. So these are the two places you get to. Updated a while back there, and there's page after page of these checklists. It says the setup one is much longer than the preparation one. And in the blue column, you're meant to put a ticker across that you checked that, and if you noticed anything, you meant to put the notes in the yellow column, but you can do what you like or read that online. And that means that you should get a first time good live partition migration. One thing I always recommend people to do is if you go and select a machine, you've got Silver 5 in here, then Actions, Mobility, Validate. Don't say migrate, because if you're not careful, it will suddenly start migrating it. The validate option in here will just do a check. Is it happy that your logical partition is in a good state to do live partition migration? So you actually get this panel here. I actually find this easier than the other one to do the migration, because it splits all these things into different panels. So you select the machine that you're going to jump to. Hopefully, if you're this is the name of our machines, and you can see they're both Power 9 machines, so it's a pretty good bet that this should work happily. And then you click on Validate, and it'll go off and do all the checks it would do before it does the migration, but not actually do it. And if it comes back with practically nothing in a little box, then you're okay. Or you might get something like this coming up. And this says we have an optical device in the computer. The optical device, virtual optical devices, virtual DVD. The actual media is held in the VIO server. We're not going to jump the VIO server with this helper. So it's just saying that you have a virtual optical device connected and that can't be migrated, and it gives you an error. Why? It doesn't tell you. I'll just rip that off because a virtual DVD isn't that important in 99.9% of the time. I don't know, but that's what's wrong with my one in here. I can disconnect the virtual optical device, and then I would get a with no messages in here, or perhaps a warning if it's one of these other things it's throwing a warning for, like if it's going to have to renumber the slot numbers for your virtual devices. But anyway, hope those checklists are useful to you getting successes with your LPMs. Right, now we'll be running this AIX in Focus on YouTube series, and we've got two new YouTube videos available in here. So one is these advanced O commands, and you may not be aware of what those actually are. Well, a lot of the tuning commands in AIX all end with an O. That's why they're called the O commands. So ASO, IOO for IO, obviously, NFSO for NFS, NO for network optimization, RASO. I always think that RASO sounds like a girl's name from a musical or something. Maybe there's something out there. But anyway, Schedule and VMO. The last two are the ones you probably use most often if you're making changes to AIX to improve the performance. Okay, and there's a little gap in here. I'll explain that in a couple of slides' time. Now, all these commands have a consistent set of common syntax for them. How do you list them? How you change them or set them? How do you make them do it now or do it permanently? So if you reboot, it will come up with that new option set. So all these common syntax things are the same, and they use the same sort of terms, and the output of all the options, what values you can have in the options, and their comments about what it means are all exactly the same layout. So they are a set of performance tuning commands. And this is something that you won't see from other operating systems, like perhaps coming from the Linux camp. So you might ask, well, how many tuning options are we talking about here? And or parameters to the commands, and it's a bit of a shock. I actually got all the commands to output all their options, and then I put it through a shell script to strip out the text and comments and things. And the answer is 531 options in there. That's quite a lot. And it's nice being able to use a proper command with an explanation of this. In Linux, sometimes you have to, echo a 1 into some bizarre device driver name that is unpronounceable to actually get it to change the way it performs. But this is already built in with AIX. So what is a gap over here? Well, there's an extra command. Oh, sorry. I could have sworn I moved that slide. Okay, so there's an extra command in here. Oh yeah, I remember now. I was going to say, yeah, you have to watch the video if you want to find out what that command is. There's one command that's nearly has all these consistent sets of parameters, but not quite. So I removed it from the list. Okay, different subject in here. If you've had AIX running for a while, you may have wanted to run some of these open source tools. There's various places to get those. In the really long time ago, Ball that uses AIX on their range of power-based machines had a repository. Michael Perzel, who's an IBMer in Germany, runs a repository with lots and lots of RPMs available there for lots of Linux, or strictly speaking, open source tools as RPM packages. But if you keep borrowing these sorts of things for particular reasons, you will find that you get into sort of a gridlock situation. You can't upgrade. For example, I've used Apache or HTTPD, the name of the program, to run a website. And then you say, okay, well, as is a bit out of date, we'll upgrade the package. And it says, no, you can't do this because all these prerequisites are required by other tools that we've installed. And so you can't go forwards to the new Apache, and you can't go backwards to get rid of these things because other tools are relying on those, and you get yourself into a bit of a logjam. If we start from fresh now with AIX 7.2, then we can install a particular yum package, and then we can use yum, this is the Red Hat RPM resource manager, to actually install a whole set of freshly made from IBM consistent RPM packages. So the nice thing of using the AIX open source toolbox is it's a trusted source because it's the guys who are doing AIX. You can look for one place to look for all the tools that are available, which is quite nice. And then you have yum to actually sort out all the prerequisites. If you're using RPM directly, you quite often find, well, I want to install Apache. Oh, there's 10 other libraries that I need to install. And then you try and install those, and half of those libraries say, oh, there's 4 other libraries you have to install to get this working. And so it's what's known as the prerequisite nest from hell. Can rapidly get things going very bad. If you're using yum, then you say, well, I want to install Apache, and it works all the prerequisites out for you and will install those all in one go. So this is, if you try and find this, you might be able to find it in Google or something, but I made a short link to IBM Biz AIX Toolbox. Now, unfortunately, this is case sensitive, so AIX in uppercase and Toolbox in lowercase, but that will get you to the website where they all are. And there are loads of them from memory. I think it was 800 different packages you can get from IBM and the open source toolbox. Now, when I came to do this, I have a server, my home machine that I've been using in the UK here for something like 15 years. It's now called Blue for IBM. It just felt right. It used to be called Asterix after Asterix the Gaul, the comic character from France. But anyway, that's by the way. Because we were running it, we had been taking packages from other places, all sorts of places when we wanted to do them. And we had got into that gridlock situation where we couldn't delete them, things to get rid of them to move on to the latest version of Apache, as I was describing earlier, and other packages are locked as well. So this is an expert blog article, what I wrote, It took me a long time to work out how to clean up these older packages, and you really have to be fairly brave to do it. So I do recommend you clone your stuck logical partition before you actually do that. Down in here, it says we upgrade AIX to 7.2, which has got to be a good thing. Then we erase all the RPM packages, well, nearly all the RPM packages. Some of them you have to leave alone. Otherwise, you'll delete the RPM package and you can't then use the command to get any other RPMs installed. You may well find that you made mistakes, or you with installing things. So you may actually have some other things you have to go and fix. So I stepped through each of the ones that I found on my machine, and how to work around those. So you should be able to work that similar sort of thing on your machine. Then you install this thing called the yum bundle, which is one tar file that has a set of RPMs that you need to get yum to run. And then you can install your favorite RPMs, the ones that you still want. I mean, some of them might be so old you don't actually want them anymore. So don't go reinstalling those, but the ones you actually now want for your modern use of your computer. You also note that you may find you've got to reconfigure them. I found that my Apache came from 2.2 and went up to 2.4, and then the config file was different, and some of the packages was different to support PHP, for example. That was all changed over the time period, so I had to rework my configuration. But I now have a nice working copy with yum, and I can install any package I feel like from the repository from IBM. Now, some people say, hang on, I can't use the IBM repository, but yes, you can. You can download all the RPM packages in the Toolbox, build your own repository, and then point yum at it and download them from there. So you can work around the problem if you don't have direct access to the internet. So this yum bundle, as it's called, it's in part of the file name. Yum bundle version 5.tar. You untar it, RPM all the packages in, then you have yum running. The first thing you should do is run yum update, because the yum inside the bundle is a year or two out of date, and it'll upgrade itself. And anything else that it can find on the machine that needs upgrading, and then you can do yum install to download your new packages. Okay, so all of this sort of question the information we're looking at is trying to get people more aware of AIX in 2020, explain some of the brilliant features we have to newbies. That's why we have 28 advanced videos now on YouTube for people to look at. And as a reminder of the old guys, you may take it for granted that all operating systems are like this, and it can be a bit of a shock when you go and run Linux. Every time I decrease the size of the root volume group, you laugh at thinking, ha, you tried doing that on Linux. Anyway, so here's the set of videos. The ones in red are the ones I've added this year. So I've been adding some of the other ones in the year in which they became available, type of thing. But then I did a review and decided, oh, there's a whole bunch of really good parts of AIX that don't have a video, or they've just come out in the past year or so, and we've added those. I mean, Xi, for example, is less than 9 months old. That's a new topic, giving you extra performance on your machine for just a little upgrade. This is the AIX Best Bits program that I ran a couple of years ago, asking AIX users what they thought the best parts of AIX, and I just generated these little logos to help you visualize what I'm talking about rather than just a bunch of names. And you can see most of these are now covered by videos in my YouTube video channel. The ones that says own series, that means shared storage pool, there's a whole series of them covering that. WPARs are in there as well. So it's not just one video. If it's just one video, it's AIX in Focus like this. I was going to say that there's one of them that has two. Yes, here we are. The AME has the original video in there when it first came out, and we've had some new updates. There's an extra video to include the new updates, like 64-bit memory, 64 kilobyte memory pages. There's a couple in here that we haven't got videos for, but they're very hard to cover. I'm struggling a bit on what we can actually cover in these sorts of things. I'm not a HA expert. I could do a very small video with some of the edited highlights of what's that about. So that is doable. There are some other HA videos around. First failure data capture. Well, don't want to blow up a machine and show you with looking at a dump to work out what happened, that sort of thing. Binary compatibility, that could be done. I've got some binaries that were compiled under AIX 5.2 and 5.3, and they just run on AIX 7.2. Extreme backward compatibility that we have with AIX that you don't get with other operating systems. Enterprise pools. Well, Gareth is in my team, and he's now a bit of an enterprise, a power enterprise pool expert, just having written a red book. I guess once that's out, we'll cover that in a future session, probably in a month's time. Difficult to show scalability because I don't have a machine with 192 CPUs, but it's quite a struggle to actually show you performance stats with that number of CPUs, for example, because you can't put 192 graphs on one screen. Okay. All right. Yeah, we do laugh at some of the Linuxes where they changed the command line interface. Systemd, for example. Oh, it just drives people mad. I've never really seen the point. But anyway, that's the current state we are in. I first covered the new Power9 scale-out models. They're called the G models because there's a G in the machine type model. And there was a tweet. I covered it all in a tweet, actually, to start with. Then there's a one-pager over here. There's now a red book out on it. Strange name for a red book. Yeah, it says basically scale-out, overview, and introduction featuring PCIe Gen 4 technology. Well, the original scale-up machines had Gen 4 technology for PCIe. Well, it wasn't all the adapters, and there's a whole bunch more things in here, not just a couple more slots for Gen 3. But there we go. Maybe I'll ask them to change the name of that because there's more going on in here. But I kept getting people saying, when are you going to give us a quick facts video on this topic? And I eventually got around to it. So now we have a little video in here, 14 minutes worth. I also clarify a whole bunch of things that are not made clear by the announcements. You have to go through the announcements to find out what haven't they written down to find out things about what's happening. This was actually 2 weeks ago, so this is 400 2 weeks ago. We're probably near 600 by now. So go and watch the video if you don't want to read the whole red book. But while between now and the last user meeting, the Power Systems Virtual User Group ran 2 sessions. This expert speaker here, Ralph Schmidt-Lenart, a good friend of mine I've known for a long time now. He is Mr. Oracle in the Benchmark Center for the new product introduction. So he'll be probably the first person that'll actually get Oracle up on our Power10 computers that we're in the process of designing and getting the first versions up and running. We had a big conference 2 weeks ago, was it, on the the Power10 chips announcements. Of course, it takes a while for those to actually get into the new range of computers. Then it takes a while for the firmware to switch on the new features, and then they start looking at the performance and performance tuning things. And then they've got to do all the rugged reliability tests and all the various, every single adapter has to be tested and that sort of stuff. So that is going to take quite a while, but he did 2 parts in here for Oracle best practice, split them to CPU and memory, and then I/O networking and miscellaneous. So there's, I think that was 3 hours in total, everything you need to know to get your Oracle databases working as fast as possible with AIX 7.2. The guy on the right here is Joe Armstrong. He runs the Power Systems Virtual User Group. And again, there's an IBM Biz down in here, Power Systems VUG. If you ever forget, Power Systems VUG, all lowercase, and you can go and get that. You get the downloads and you can get the slides as well. Okay, so we have a regular slot at the end of our half an hour or so. Support dates and things. Here's a reminder. AIX 5.3, no, it's not supported. Don't ask. 6.1, if you're on a POWER7 machine, that ends this month. 0 months to go. Even if you've paid an extended support contract, that will no longer be supported. If you've got POWER7 Plus and Power 8, will they carry on a little while longer, or 16 months, 20 months? So you're okay there. You should really be moving to AIX 7.2. You will get a performance advantage with 7.2. 6.1 was designed many, can't think of the actual year it came out, but we've moved on since then. As we performance tuned them and performance tuning them, there's more and more releases coming out, and you should get a performance boost just by upgrading. Unless you're on Power 6, at which point AIX 7.2 will boot itself and say, nope, I don't do Power 6, and immediately stop. It's quite spectacular trying it. So you should be moving up anyway. Even if you're on 7 Plus and 8, well worth moving up for the performance gain. There we go. There's a note in here. If you're on TL2 of 7.2, then that's only supported, the regular support, till October 2020. Unless Petra tells me this has been, the dates have been moved. The VIOS server, the VIOS server 2.2 point something, are based on AIX 6, so we're moving away from that as well. And it's out of extended support in September, so you need to move up to VIOS server 3.3, which is based on AIX 7.2, so that makes sense as well. I tested this in the early days, and I wrote this best practice and how to upgrade and everything I know about upgrading. It's a big jump, of course. You're going from AIX 6 to AIX 7, so it's a save everything you can think of, and then do an overwrite install of AIX 7.2, and then the programs will, the upgrader will actually put back all your virtual devices for you. And there's a note in here, this has changed from last time. The latest version is 3.1125. I had last week a couple of people asking me, they were thinking of going to VIOS server 3.1010. And I thought, well, that's nearly a year and a half out of date. Why not just take it right up to the latest version now, as you have to stop your VIOS server to do the upgrades? Okay. Yep, so we got 4 weeks left to either do the upgrade, highly recommended, performance benefit, or negotiate extended support. I don't think there's a fixed price for the extended support. You have to negotiate that. You have to ask them for a price, and then accept it or not might be the negotiation. Letting your VIOS server go unsupported might cost you your job. That's sort of my polite threat. If you'd failed to upgrade it and you have a major machine outage because of that, it really is the systems administrator's fault, and we need to pressurize the the application customers, the managers of the applications, to allow you the time to actually do this upgrade. Of course, you could do live partition mobility from a VIOS server, a machine running 2.2 to a machine running 3.1, and that's one way of getting your upgrades. Empty machine and then do the upgrade when there's no applications or LPARs running on the machine. Now, if you're an AIX User Meeting member, like you've been on this, or if you've watched the replay, then I'm quite happy for you to email me, and maybe WebEx or Zoom, we could discuss your actual needs. quite a lot of people decide what they want to do, and then they have a half-hour chat with me, and I say, yes, that makes sense, but there's a couple of things here that you should be aware of. And the one that everybody hates is the fact that your H-disk numbers may be renumbered after they come back up. And some customers like to document everything, and H-disk 1 will be a paging disk or something, and it may be now called H-disk 28. They don't like that. But that is business as normal for doing a large AIX upgrade. We can explain why they're different numbers afterwards, but we're not going to do that here. Okay. Another one, it's actually a friend of mine, Mr. Acapuldi from the AIX support team. He's using nmonchart, and he had the nmon data from the VIOS server, so he switched on with the -O, this option in here, and then it collects C stats, and the nmonchart didn't draw graphs for him, and I'm quite sure he's very technically able, but I'm quite sure he could have done that, but it took me maybe a half an hour to do that and to test the new graphs were okay. You can remember that these are C stats, SEA, and O in here. I ran out of letters that were suitable, so O stands for ocean. Ocean is a bit like a sea. I thought that's quite clever. Well, we got some. We've got 3 more graphs in here, so you can see what's going across the sea and what's coming across the sea, the shared Ethernet adapter, and then going out onto the physical network rather than coming in. That should be an A in there, shouldn't it? Rather than packets that are coming in on the shared Ethernet adapter and going to another LPAR back out on the shared Ethernet adapter. So we can see the difference here. So it's something, these are chatting amongst themselves, but somebody then did a great big spike in here out onto the physical network. Okay, so that's it for this time. It has been the crazy system, crazy time of year with the holidays and that, and so things have been a little slow. Later on today at 4:30 BST, which is an hour from now, we've got the nmon and njmon user meeting, so you're welcome to join us for that too. And we'll be back with the AIX user meeting in 5th of October. Thank you very much for your time. I haven't muted anybody, but if anybody got any live questions, we can cover that now. I'll switch the recording off to protect the innocent.